Dal plays the game. Holodeck program Andoria 4 is up and running. Classic. And Rock Talk thinks Murph is indestructible. She might be right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton, and Bonnie Gordon, of course.
Hello.
We are joined by a very, very special guest. Actually, what am I thinking? Bonnie, would you like to introduce Aron?
I would. I really would. Everyone, listeners, viewers, people of the Trek universe, I would love for you all to give a warm welcome to Aron WALTKE, the writer of this most recent episode of Star Trek Prodigy.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Air horn noise.
Yes. Please no.
Confetti bomb.
Reggaeton horn. Red alert.
Shirt cannon.
Thank you for having me. This has been quite a day. You know, the episode just dropped literally hours ago. So, notifications are exploding right now. So I appreciate you having me on. I think I said last time I was here, I love talking about Star Trek with whoever will listen. And obviously this episode means a lot to me, and I think a lot of other people too. So happy to be here.
Aron, I think I speak for nerds everywhere when I say thank you very much for joining in. And speaking of which, you really let your nerd flag fly in this episode, which is episode 6 of season 1, entitled Kobayashi, directed by Alan Wan, written by Aron J. WALTKE, by the way. Man, oh man. Okay, so Cirroc, I don't know where you want to start, but I just want to address the elephant in the room, which is how much freaking time did it take for you to parse through? Because this was clearly audio that was taken from other episodes. I think I even heard a movie quote. I think there was a line from Spock, possibly from the JJ movies, if I remember correctly. There was one line where he said, I remember another captain of the Enterprise or something like that. I feel like that was from one of the movies.
I think that one was from Unification too.
Okay.
But him saying "live long and prosper" was from JJ 2009, and then him. I think there was a couple of lines from Uhura, and I think the captain of the Kobayashi Maru from Wrath of Khan, and then the rest were taken from a smattering of different Star Trek episodes from across the last 55 years. And so, how many 6+ shows, 5 and movies? I mean, to say it was a Herculean task is probably an understatement. It was a labor of love, no question. It was something that I kind of self-assigned. I did it originally when we were first breaking the episode and just trying to figure out what was possible and, how we were going to approach this. That we talked about all options. We're like, well, do we get sound-alikes? Do we see who is available? And then ultimately we were like, no, if we're going to do the characters, let's honor the original performances and the original characters. And they said, well, how are we going to do that? And I was like, well, we have hundreds of hours of footage of them doing it. Like, let's just see if it's possible. Because to get philosophical for a second, I honestly think that Star Trek has become such a legacy and such a franchise that it is now just a conversation across decades and generations. And I think from an artistic and personal standpoint, I thought it was not only a challenge, but an important one to say, if you can do this, if you can actually preserve what these original artists intended when they were bringing these characters to life, that would probably be the best way to honor them than just to create find a sound alike and have it just be a fun nod. And so it took me a very long time, all told. I think I went back into the archives probably 8 or 9 times. I watched about 40-ish episodes top to bottom, rewatched them. Read about 90 Star Trek scripts top to bottom. Wow. Just trying to find the perfect lines. And it wasn't just a matter of just reading them and say, oh, that's good, that's good. Sometimes I'd find lines that I thought were perfect, and then I would go back in and find them in the episode and realize that the inflection was wrong, or it was recorded in the 1960s, so they were too far away from the microphone, or they were like rattling something while they were talking, or they were shuffling. You know, the microphones back then weren't the best. And you know, I think the audio is still a little rough in spots, but I think we were able to salvage it in such a way, and the fact that it's through a simulation, that you're willing to go along with it and embrace it for what it is, which is a celebration of these artists' performances, kind of communing in a sort of the sacred space of the Star Trek Enterprise bridge.
Aaron, you didn't have a team? Sorry, I just assumed you said, all right, you two find me some lines that are kind of like this, and you two find me some like.
It was all me. Yeah, I'm a bit masochistic that way, I suppose, but it really didn't feel like work. It was a calling, and I don't mean to sound dramatic, but it was sort of like, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it right, or do it as best as I possibly can. And you know, people sometimes assume that, oh, you're working on a television show, you must have massive resources and whole departments that will handle that. And, you know, maybe some of the bigger shows do, but, you know, Star Trek Prodigy is very much like, you know, we're a tight-knit crew. We're like a pirate crew that's just trying to take it, the moment we've been given and what resources we have, and cobble it together and try to create a cathedral, even if it's made out of matchsticks or something. It's a little bit like a theater company that way. It just has to look, the end result has to look like you put, like you had, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars to put into it. It wasn't just me staying up and drinking coffee at 3 a.m, keeping my wife awake, watching Balance of Terror for the 10th time to find the perfect line where they talk about the neutral zone. But yeah, I do have to give credit though to the Star Trek archives too, because, you know, I found the lines, but then they had to go into the actual physical media or the digitized media and pull those lines then for me, send it. Then I would give that to the team, say, put this here, shift it this way, that way. And it was a team effort of a lot of buccaneers just trying to figure out how we could do something that I don't think had really been done before on this level. The closest I can think of, which was sort of an inspiration of like, oh, maybe we can pull it off, was from Deep Space Nine.
It's one of my favorite episodes.
Trials and Tribulations. And I was like, well, if they can pull it off, then maybe just maybe if I put enough heart and gumption into this, we could do it too. So.
And if I remember correctly, Aaron, when recording this, the team wasn't sure which characters they were going to be able to get, or if they were going to be able to add more. And as the computer, I got to read so many different Star Trek characters. You know, like in the episode now, you hear me saying, you know, communications officer Uhura, and, you know, going down the list. But I got to say so many other characters that weren't listed in the episode. And when I say I actively squealed after every name, because, you know, I would just turn the page and go, what? I was just so excited. So, you know, just while I have your attention, personally, I want to thank you because, you know, as a Trekkie and being able to work on the show is already a dream. And I know I'll never, you know, in reality get to work with people like Leonard Nimoy, and, you know, Spock is one of my favorite characters. And of course, Scotty, and, you know, these are and Odo, you know, these are characters that I love and have grown up with and wish I could share a scene with them. And you actually made it a reality. Like, I got to be in a scene, you know, with Spock and Odo and Scotty and Uhura. And it just blows my mind that these legends of Star Trek that, you know, I'll never really get to work with I get to say their names and be in a scene with them. So thank you for that. Like, I don't want to get emotional and cry about it, but it's
you're making me a little emotional.
But I mean, that's overwhelming.
It's nice to hear that because, you know, as I've kind of alluded to, a big reason why I wanted to do it this way was because I wanted it. I'll put it this way: my hope of all hopes is, like, one of the mandates of Prodigy is to introduce new and young audiences to Star Trek. And my hope is, like, by just presenting a little space in which you could see some of these performances just in a very limited, minor way, that it'll create that spark of interest and be part of that gateway to then go back and see all the incredible things that Renee and Leonard and James and everyone has done over the past 55 years, because it's been the joy of my life to have these characters kind of, that I can return to by watching TV, or at this point just playing the scenes in my head. And it always makes me happy, and especially today's people responding to it are feeling a similar sentiment. So I'm glad that's coming across.
Yeah, it was amazing. And again, I have been sitting on my love for this episode for over a year. In fact, fun fact, I think after I recorded it, I slid into your DMs and thanked you for the script. That was my first interaction with you on Twitter. I was like, you don't know me, but thank you. It was great. And so thank you so much. It was just, what a dream to just be able to say that I got to speak in the same scenes as some of these characters. Yeah.
Well, they're all masters of their craft. And I'm just glad that I was able to be, I don't know, a doorman for their performances, at least for one little way that hopefully other people can discover the rest of the amazing things they've done. So,
all right, Cirroc.
He's just
every once in a while, when we watch a Deep Space Nine episode, I say, God, I wish I could see Cirroc's reaction. But today, more than I think when Eddington or Cal Hudson betrayed Sisko, more than when Weyoun dies the first time, I felt like I wish I could have seen your reaction when we saw Odo pop in. And Aron obviously knows Star Trek, because everybody knows the best way to introduce Odo is to have him go, right? How did you react, or how did you feel about it?
Well, first of all, it took me about an hour to watch this episode, even though it's about 24 minutes long, 22 minutes long. I had to keep stopping it and rewinding it and writing things down because it was just full of stuff. It was packed. I mean, the B storyline was, could have been an A storyline in itself.
Yeah.
So, but I want to say congratulations to you, Aron, because I want to say that I rate this episode as an A+. And I also say that, I wrote down here in my notes, this is the best new episode of Star Trek out of all the series that they've released. In my humble opinion.
Wow.
You're going to make me cry, Cirroc. Sorry.
And that's what it is. It was just the way I feel like Star Trek needs to be written. I feel like when you write it in this way and you have this tapestry of the old and the new, and you use and maximize your ability to pull from the old and blend it into the new. I just thought that you did a remarkable job of making this story work. And it was definitely the best of the new Star Trek that's been released, all the series, in my opinion. Watched it, intensely. I thought of Trials and Tribulations. I thought of the kind of historical moment that you captured here in this episode, and bringing all the old characters and blending them in with the new storyline is really kind of this handing of the baton to this Dow character and the storyline of what they're doing here on Prodigy. So, I mean, congratulations to you. I'm glad that this buildup has led to this moment. It feels like it was well worth the wait. And there was a point at which you're like, where are they going to go with this story? And now I'm seeing that it's about to get really interesting. Even ends on a fantastic note that leaves you wanting more. And so all around, from the beginning to the end, I think you captivated the audience. You gave the Star Trek what they're looking for, and you wrote a kind of episode that's going to, for me, going to stand in the upper echelon of the lore of Star Trek throughout time. So thanks, Aron, for doing this and putting in the work having the vision, executing the vision. And, this is one of those episodes. I don't know if you see my notes, but I couldn't have more space.
Wow.
I'm just writing and writing and writing. And, I was about to get onto page 2, and I only write this much for an hour long episode of some really good material.
Sometimes we write less than that in an hour show, but this one was just like, it was a scroll.
Yeah. And I could have done more. I was holding back. And just this fantastic job. That's when a mark of a good writer to me as well is when I find myself constantly writing and writing down lines, writing down scenes, writing down meanings. And that's what you did. Language is more than translation; it's interpretation. Love that line, Aaron. I mean, it's just like it's like a philosophy in itself. It makes you kind of think about language and how how people read the Bible. I thought of this when I was watching the episode, but I thought of the Bible, and I saw the words are in the Bible, but how it's interpreted by somebody really means more than just the language of it. And so, great point that you made in the dialogue. Expanded on Murph's character. Love to see more Murph, and you
everybody loves Murph.
I mean, you gave me more Murph. I just can't say enough good things about this. And to me, this is just like a home run, and it's going to be, like I said, considered upon all of the Star Trek as one of the best episodes.
Yes.
So congratulations for that accomplishment, Aaron.
Wow.
You did it.
I feel like the
Good luck
whole
answering
episode, I feel like the whole episode is like a love letter to Star Trek. Like it basically, for all the Trekkies watching and for people who are familiar with, the lore and the franchise, it is a love letter to everything that they grew up with and love about Star Trek. And it's also like he was saying, such a great introduction for the younger audience to see who some of these legends are, and just to kind of give them a sneak peek of what's to come if they go back and watch, some of the original series and Next Generation. And, it's such it wraps it up so beautifully. Well, what he said.
I'm a little at a loss for words because that was such a beautiful tribute, and as a Midwesterner, I have no idea how to take compliments. But thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm glad that sort of thing came across, because it really was, as I said, it came from a place of deep love, and it was a love letter. Because this was my first. This is something that's, I guess, been building up inside me from my, because my first exposure to Star Trek was sitting on the couch watching the premiere of Star Trek: The Next Generation back in 1987 live with my dad. I was just like a young kid, but I was feeding off his energy, and there's something palpable about seeing this possible future, and hope, and in a world that's unlike ours, but feels like perhaps within reach within a few generations. And so, like, the chance for me to just kind of like say, hey, this is everything that Star Trek's meant to me. I hope I can pass that on to another little kid sitting on their couch with their dad. Was something that I think maybe intuitively kind of came out in this episode, even when I was doing little scenes like, with Gwyn and Zero corresponding and bonding sort of for the first time. I think that was sort of, it's always been, I think, a major Star Trek ideal, was sort of like that out of many one kind of philosophy of just like our differences are our strengths, and we can fill in each other's weaknesses. And Zero's sort of analytical and perhaps neuroatypical approach to understanding Gwen's grief actually winds up helping giving her perspective. And it was every scene and every line to me felt like an opportunity. And I'm glad that, and I've said this on other podcasts and interviews before, is like writing Star Trek, I've written a lot of stuff over the years, but writing Star Trek for me has felt the most just like breathing, because so much of my own philosophy and my own sort of aesthetic was so not just informed by it, but almost like the foundation of it. So I'm glad that I could give back, I guess, because Star Trek's done a lot for me. I remember when I was a young teenager, I had my own woes and troubles, but I could always come home and I would watch Next Generation, and then Deep Space Nine would be on back to back, and I was able to watch Deep Space Nine every day and always come home and see how these other characters, kind of were dealing with their own perhaps outlandish, science fiction problems, but it was always a metaphor for something very real, emotional, deeply personal, and ultimately true. And that's what I think all great writing does. So I'm glad I was able to emulate that even just a little bit for you.
I say this in the most complimentary way that I can. When I got the script, it was like reading some of the best fan fiction of Star Trek, because we've all thought to ourselves, if I could have the perfect bridge crew, who would it be? And from original series, but you're and then from Next Gen, and then from DS9. But at the same time, you never can, that'll never happen, because obviously they're all in different times, and you can't merge it together. And you just were like, you know what, I can do it, and you made the perfect. You made the perfect little fanfic moment. And that's what it felt like to me. It felt like, oh gosh, this is like, chewing the best kind of fan fiction as Trekkie could ever hope for.
Yeah.
And I mean that as a compliment, because I know everyone watching was just like, seeing them all together on a bridge.
There's no question that there was a certain element of wish fulfillment and fan fiction. But I think the fun part of it, though, is that it was earned within the lore of the universe, and that we were kind of updating the Kobayashi Maru, and we've seen the holodeck can literally summon just about any historical figure just by saying, "Computer, show me Leonardo da Vinci," and he would appear, and there'd be some sort of baseline version of it. So it kind of made sense, that you could apply that to a training simulator. And as we saw in the original Wrath of Khan depiction of the Kobayashi Maru, it wasn't just a bunch of other ensigns that were there filling in the roles. It was literally the actual crew of the Enterprise doing these training simulations with, Saavik. So in that way, I think ours is actually a little more practical that you can, because we got to thinking, if fast forward 100 years, if you were told, okay, how do you select the best bridge crew, and how can you adapt this to individual, tests or individual characters or whatever, that are taking it, then of course there would be all these different options, and perhaps they would just have logs of all the Starfleet personnel, and it would just, that presumably had either taken the tests or had some sort of assessment by Starfleet. And it made sense to us that, you'd have Scotty, who's arguably the greatest engineer who ever lived. And Odo, I personally think, is probably the best security officer we've ever seen in Starfleet. He's no disrespect to Worf, but I think that Worf got a little bit less done than Odo. Odo actually, was like a private eye and would do stakeouts and stuff and bring people in. And Uhura, obviously greatest communications officer ever. I will say she came out more in the movies than in the TV show. But even in the TV show, you had little bits like Gamesters of Triskelion, which I even sampled in this episode, where she's just like, I don't care whether it's allowed or not, I will not do it. And then
that's where
standing
that
up to
was
these
from,
gods. Yes. Where there's these alien gods that are basically forced them to play these games. And she's like, hell no.
That's a great episode.
And that's like, that's when I was like, oh, that's the Uhura I remember, because I remember her from the movies, and I was like, oh, I need to use that. And it just happened to dovetail perfectly into Odo resigning his commission. So
so great.
It was perfect.
So Aron, I've got to echo everything that has been said before. I gave it an A+ to Cirroc, and I didn't realize that Cirroc and I both gave this an A+ without hesitation, without speaking. We don't talk about these things. We just go right into it. But we were talking a few minutes ago, and I want to touch on it a bit more, the gateway aspect of this, and the way you are. It's almost as if you are showing children. I mean, obviously this is for adults as well, which is very clear right now. But when you are presenting Star Trek to children, it's almost as if you are trying to present them with the awe and the wonder and the joy that you saw and you see in Star Trek. And if there was one word I would use to describe Prodigy as a whole, I would say wonder, because you're kind of opening their minds and you're saying, see, look how cool Star Trek is. Don't you love it? You know,
One of us.
There's got to be this fine line that you are walking yourself as a writer and the writer's room as a whole, where you're trying to say, okay, I want this to be for children and I want this to be for adults, and kind of how you walk that fine line and weave that in and out. Is how does that conversation usually go, or what do you prioritize?
I think usually when we have these conversations, we prioritize just the story and the character. Like we start from that. And then if for whatever reason, as we're talking about it, we're like, oh, that might be a little too crunchy, sci-fi, or that might be a little too dark or whatever. Then we like, well, how do we adjust the dial so it's accessible to everybody, adults and kids, but doesn't necessarily dilute either's experience? Because I think when you're writing for children or young adults in particular, sometimes there is this assumption that you have to water it down, or you have to make it like more infantile or dumb, or talk down to them. But the thing I remember from my own childhood and just dealing with my own friends and relatives who have kids now is like, kids are smart. They're way smarter than you think they are. You have to give them so much credit. Maybe it's just because I grew up, sneaking down and watching on WGN, like all of the R-rated movies that they would play on the Saturday afternoon matinee on TV. So I got to see Aliens way too early. And
best movie ever.
Yeah, it's amazing. But the thing is, like, even if I was a little bit scared, or even if I was like a little confused, it didn't turn me off from it. Instead, if I was scared, I would get to the end of the movie and realize I was still alive, and I got through it. And I'd feel a little stronger for it. Like, like fear is like anything else that you can overcome if you have the resolve. Or if it's something confusing, I found myself staying up late at night as a kid, under the covers, like turning the idea over in my head. Like, how does that make sense? Well, if he went back in time, then this, and until I had figured it out, and then I understood it. And really it was that's, I think, science fiction in particular, but all literature to a certain degree, is great at that. That's the whole purpose of it, is thought experiments. It's sort of popular culture philosophy that gives you a chance to sort of push yourself outside of your comfort zone and explore who you are by venturing into things that you aren't. So we never really came to it from a place of like, oh, let's make this dumb thing for babies because it's for babies. And it was always what's something cool that we want to see that will mean something to these characters and to the world as it is now, and perhaps to the legacy of Star Trek as it is now, and in this time period of Star Trek, which I think, as some hardcore Trekkies are aware, it's like sort of the grace before the fall, at least for a little while, because and as we've seen in Picard in 2385, there's the Utopia Planitia incident, and then so suddenly Star Trek, the Federation has to retract its borders and becomes very isolationist and stuff. So we're kind of in this period of the golden age before that, where it's like great expansion and wild experimentation, and the sky's the limit, and the Dominion War's over. So let's just go out there and throw spaghetti at the wall and try new technology, and go back to Star Trek season 1, where you could suddenly be thrown out to the far end of the universe and nobody would bat an eye
by a snap of a finger. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I feel like when the show first came out, I think that's what when it was first announced, a lot of people's fear was that, oh, this is going to be Star Trek for babies. Just like you were saying, there was a lot of, fear, not even fear, a lot of speculation and criticism on social media about it. And people were all the naysayers were just so upset about it at first. And then as soon as the first episode came out, it was like a complete 180. Everyone went, oh, we get it. And then, it just, and I feel like the more people watch it, the more they realize it's not a kid show. It's I would say it's more of a family show. It's for everyone.
Right.
And that's what makes it so special.
Yeah, I mean, there was a period of time in the late 80s and 90s, I suppose, where you had a lot of like this sort of 4-quadrant that's what it's called in the industry, not in Star Trek, not the Gamma Delta. They call it 4-quadrant because it's literally for all demographics, like male and female, older and younger, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's your Jurassic Parks, you know, that's your Ghostbusters, that's your things that are just like, there's something there for everybody. And you can literally, as a family, sit down and watch it and have a shared storytelling experience that everyone gets something very profound out of. And, you know, whether we always achieve that is a different story, but that's something that myself and the Hageman brothers and many of the other writers on the show have always striven for, because that was the stuff that we loved growing up, that sort of Amblin, Spielbergian, the James Cameron-esque type stories that come back to you even now, again and again. So that's what we're always aiming for, even if it takes us a little bit to get there.
Yeah, great development with the character development too, for getting backstory on the diviner and the lines that he had about, you know, recreating Prodigy, and, you know, there's no obstacle we can't overcome, for we are Thalmakot. Is that what is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then bringing that line back again towards the end in Prodigy, where she's, you know, realizes that the language that she knows, and that's her ancestral language, is what the program is written in. Very clever, gives her more sense of purpose. Also gave a very special meaning to the moment that was exchanged between her and Dow when somebody said, "It's a good thing we came back to save you," you know. And they had that small exchange, which I thought is a growth in their relationship. It was kind of a moment where they acknowledge each other and say, "Okay, we're in this together." And
or she comes to the realization that he actually does care about her, not it wasn't some
even if Dow is pretty atrocious at learning how to be vulnerable. You know, I think that was the first crack, well, the first of several cracks, I think, that we've seen slowly splintering through his veneer, and learning how to be part of a community of mutual trust with his friends and found family. So yeah, that you've picked up on all this stuff that I was hoping you would.
Yeah,
so.
They were great. They were great moments. And even the idea of ending it on the Chicote, I thought was extremely clever and left me wanting more. I just, you know, I was like, "Oh, it's over. It's over. Oh my God, it's over. I can't wait till the next one."
I have a feeling that you weren't my first crew. Yeah.
Yeah, that right at the end. And even the fact that they're 4,000 light years away, like all of these things that you threw into this episode, it was just layered with so much context. And I think it gave a lot for the audience to go on. This could have been a pilot episode. It was just so good. It was so many good things in it that I feel like the journey is almost now again just beginning for them, where I feel like we did all this to get here so that now we can start another journey, and it's almost a rebirth of the show. It's amazing. So soon and so early on that you've got us kind of really bought in on the characters that you've developed, and so now I'm in. So what's on the menu for the next episode? You know, that's what you've created, and I really thank you for that. And I love your line too, Bonnie. You know, about captain assessment, 3% on the leadership, and 2%. Those are great.
When you were talking about Dal, I was going to say, well, not to brag, but he did score a 2% on leadership. So he's going places.
2%. Yeah. Well, what's great with all the writers, and Aron, like, of course, you specifically in this episode, you know, as the computer, I feel like I've gotten to have so many comedic moments, which I feel like never really, you know, I'm so blessed to have that, because there's something about the timing and just like, you know, even from like the very first time I've really had a scene where, you know, please tell me there are more escape pods on board. Like, there are no more escape pods on board. Like, just the little moments that I've had that are, you know, access denied, little things that I've gotten to do with the characters. it's shown almost like a sense of humor to the moments, and I've loved that, because as the computer, I'm not really getting to, use my acting chops so much, but it's been so fun to watch and like see it all edited together, and it's been so much fun. Oh, well, thank you. But you know what I mean? Like, it's so fun to like see those little moments happen. I laughed out loud. I was like, oh, that's funny.
I love the little
it's been great.
Is it almost indetectable pause that you put just before you say the last one, where it's just like overall score 0.1%.
Yeah, 0.1%. Yeah. And I remember recording this the day we recorded it, I did so many different numbers, like attempt number 74, attempt number 132. Like we just did a whole bunch of numbers, and I just did them at random half the time, because we were like, we don't know what's going to happen, how many segments are going to happen, how many times they're going to like intercept it in. So I think I went through so many different numbers. I think I even did one where it was like attempt number, 94 and a half, like, I don't know. I did like little things like that. 0.7,
Yeah,
it was fun. It was fun.
I think one of the drafts, maybe it was the first draft, because I couldn't stop myself when I was writing this episode. I think there was probably an extra like 5 or 6 minutes that we just couldn't use.
Oh yeah,
different ways he tried.
Like just like a montage of chaos. Yeah, I remember reading that.
At one point there was like a tug of war with tractor beams, and he accidentally slings the Kobayashi Maru into the sun.
Was there a dance off? I can't.
There wasn't a dance off. There was a negotiation scene. Where he just like, all right, what's it going to take? Like a crate of Cardassian bubbly, like you and me, let's make a deal. And then the Klingons just called him a Patak and blew him up. It was really
great.
Like if this is an hour-long episode, it could have easily been. Honestly, I could have just kept going. Just all you need. If you tell me just write bridge scenarios that have no consequences, then apparently that will occupy me until the kingdom comes.
You gotta get a montage, and it's like it's like just a huge montage of explosions and scenarios. It was great. It was a lot of fun.
Aaron, you also initially at the beginning, I mentioned how you let your nerd flag fly, and it wasn't just because of this kind of fantasy scenario that all us Star Trek fans have done a million times over. Guilty. We do it. We go like, I want Worf and Uhura and Hoshi, but what you also did was you snuck in some things for those of us that go, and there are a couple things I didn't catch. I want to give a shout out to our associate producer, Dr. Marie Segal, who's very active on Twitter and has a lot of things to say. She pointed out that you also, when they were looking for the Kobayashi Maru and they were kind of switching through, there was the Paxau Resort on Talix, and there was Deadwood as well, which was, like Fistful of Data's. I don't know if there was more than that, but I mean, that's pretty impressive to sneak to where people actually have to like hit pause and like really look closely. I don't know if there's more things you snuck in.
I think there is the, I'm blanking on the name of it, but it's the from Elementary Dear Data,
the Sherlock Holmes one.
Yes, it's called like Sherlock 4B or something. But I think it's the first time they show it. Again, you have to pause it for like a fraction of a second, but you can see there's a Sherlock there. That's cool. Definitely that. At one point, we even had Dixon Hill in there, but I think just at one point we just had him scrolling through every single one, and I was like, "Just put it all in. You just put them all in." But
Vic Fontaine,
we had to cut. I think Vic Fontaine's nightclub was in there or something, but we had to cut it for time at some point. There's only so much you can really get out of that, other than just fan service. But we managed to get enough little hints that are just for people that stop and look. And the other one, of course, is the game from the episode, the ball and cone game. That was
mentioned at the top.
I have to give a shout out. That was our supervising producer, Patrick Krebs, who's also a big Star Trek fan. That was his idea, and I was like, "Yes, we absolutely should do that." I think in the first draft, I just had like it was the snake game but instead the snake game,
yeah.
it was SETI eels and from Star Trek Wrath of Khan. But he was like, no, let's make it the game from TNG. And I was like, that's a better reference than me just referencing the game Snake.
Yeah, because it's immediately recognizable. We all see that and we go, oh, wait, I know that one. Good old Wesley Crusher's antics saving the day again.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one of my favorite moments too was the high five between Dal and Spock. When Spock puts up the live long and prosper and he just slaps his hand and the look he gives. That was another priceless moment in this episode.
Yeah, that was something I think we found. I can't remember. Oh no, it wasn't the script, but then we had to finesse it just right in the boards because I think Dal was making a genuine, like he obviously had never seen the prosper gesture, so he just kind of assumed it was like a handshake or something, you know.
By the way, let it be known that is called a sci-5.
A sci-5.
Oh,
I love that.
Okay.
You just did that, Ryan.
That's kind of the fun in animation too, is like you have a few bites of the apple just to find little moments and nuances that you can kind of color in the lines and make everything just a little bit more humanistic and a little more real, or just like a fun little nod or a reaction from a character in the background maybe you weren't paying attention to the first two around. You know, it's a wonderful medium to play in, but I'm so glad that everybody's picking up on these little things that we managed to drop in.
Well, actually, speaking of which, can I just point out that everybody, not just us, but everybody is really loving this. I want to show you some of the reactions from the Lower Decks Facebook group that we have here. Just very quickly, so you could take a quick look.
This episode was sort of a shot across the bow at Lower Decks, I guess.
Oh, sorry, did I say Lower Decks? I meant Prodigy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was going to say,
I don't know why you would need to see the Lower Decks stuff. Sorry.
No, I thought
Prodigy.
maybe the Lower Decks people are like, they're encroaching on our turf.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So the aforementioned Marie Segal was very excited and had a lot of things to say here. All great things. The game she caught. Jenna Stevens says, "Oh my God, that episode was so cool. Well done. So many familiar friends." Levi Tinker. By the way, Levi Tinker here is the general manager of Mann's Chinese Theater in Hollywood. Really a wonderful guy, huge Star Trek fan. He came in the clutch very much so when Aron Eisenberg passed away, and we needed a place for a for a gathering, for a funeral, and he hooked that up. He's just a wonderful human. Mark says, "Ooh, great cameos." Hal Bjorn says, "Love this episode. Oh my God, Spock, Odo, Crusher, and Uhura, I'm dying." Well, just wait till you see Scotty. But there it is. Another mystery. There's Levi saying more great things. That's an all new performance by Gates. I'm assuming that is correct. Yes.
Yeah, she even improvised a couple of the lines there.
Amazing.
I believe when she says the condition of your stubbornness belongs in a medical textbook. That was
I like that line.
So
well, also Malissa Longo, who by the way is the widow of Aron Eisenberg, and it's Aron Eisenberg's birthday, by the way. So everybody raise a glass of root beer. We'll be celebrating that a little later. She says it's a great episode, and she said privately that she really loved this episode as well. Jim Westbrook loved it. Adam David made a mess. He said, "My brain melted a bit through my brain or my ears." Loved it. Dow, Kobayashi, McGrew, love it. Anyway, lots and lots and lots of love.
Wow.
In the Prodigy group. Sorry.
This episode was so hard to make, and there were so many instances where I was in the thick of it and just trying to figure out how I was going to do it. And I was like, am I making the worst episode of Star Trek ever? So it is very surreal to be sitting here and having people say the opposite, because it was, you convince yourself in those long, dark nights of the soul that, you're just trying to make the best of a bad situation. Like, I've flown through too close to the sun. What have I done? But I'm glad that the people are being so forgiving and very, very kind about it. So thank you, everybody.
It's been
Yeah, you just set a high bar and really set the show off on a great trajectory. I love it, and now I can see why, Bonnie, you were so excited about what was about to happen, and you couldn't reveal it, and were just boiling over.
Oh, I've been sitting on this for so long. Everyone's like, oh, because in every interview I do, everyone's like, oh, we're so excited that, Chakotay's been announced. I wonder if there's any other cameos. And I'm like, just, it hurt. It hurt so hard. And, after reading the script of this episode, I was just so excited for it as a Star Trek fan that, I couldn't wait for people to watch it and to see their reaction to it. So it's been so fun. Aaron, I know your notifications are going crazy, but I've been doing the same thing, like searching all the hashtags and liking every tweet I can. It's been so much fun seeing everyone's mind being blown, by this episode. And also what a great return, just like they were saying, it's such a great return, because the first 5 episodes really raised the bar. Prodigy, it's, people are just like, they couldn't believe there was a break. They wanted more right away. Yeah. And, for them to have to wait this long and for it to come back on such a high note, I think really, really says something about the show. Like so many people were just so excited for this episode. And once they watched it, they were not disappointed. So kudos to you and all the writers. I mean, I feel like every episode just keeps raising the bar. Knowing what's to come. I just can't wait for everyone to watch what's to come. Like it's just
I want to make it very clear. Yes, I did a lot of work on this episode just in terms of the story, but it was not me alone by any means. Like everyone from the actors, the storyboard artists, our editors, our effects people, our directors, our executive producers, everybody was just like all hands on deck. We knew from the get-go this was going to be a very hard episode to make. Ambitious. And we all said, yes, but to quote JFK, we do these things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. So we all came together and really committed to it, even when it was hard, even when it would seem like it was not working or it was going to be too much trouble. They held tight, and they gave me the latitude to try to make it the best that I could, and I empowered them to do their job to the best of ability, and everybody just worked really, really hard on this. And I want to thank all of them for their hard work, because it literally couldn't be made without it. So I appreciate all of this praise, but I want to also deflect most, if not all of it, also to the Star Trek Prodigy crew, who managed to pull this episode off. So because they truly are miracle workers in the most Scotty of senses. Like, you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes to make these incredible episodes basically out of bubble gums and toothpicks, but to make it seem like cinema quality. So I'm deeply appreciative of them and everybody. Yeah. So.
Yeah, your team conquered your own personal Kobayashi Maru.
Yes, you're right.
I believe you all passed. Yeah.
You all passed. Make it official,
you all
Bonnie.
Passed. I did. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Confirmed. You have passed the Kobayashi Maru.
Oh my God, I just died.
What did you do? What have you done? Red alert.
Everybody did bring their A game. You could see that the animation was fantastic. Just the whole story flowed so well, and all the actors, just hit the right notes. I felt the sensitivity in the moments.
And the humor.
Prodigy was saying,
I love that they bring so much humor into it, where the kids, are also getting that. Just like when you cut to the bridge and it's completely empty and they're all huddled behind the console. It's just so funny, just little, almost like vaudevillian bits that keep both the adults and the kids laughing. It's like a constant.
Well, I grew up watching Charlie Chaplin because I'm. Okay. This is a weird fact that has nothing to do with anything, but I am just.
You're not that old. You're not that old. I'm using black and white.
Are you really?
No.
Are you really?
Yeah, Charlie Chaplin is my great uncle. So
That's incredible.
I've always felt, you can kind of see it a little bit in the face, not really, but I've always kind of because of that. Just maybe it's just more force of habit from my family, kind of drilling that into me. I've always really had a deep appreciation of like physical comedy, and Chaplin in particular had this gift of taking an ordinary scene and making it extraordinary just by what sort of refashioning and repurposing what you think are the normal circumstances. A cane
and keeping the moment
sword.
real, and keeping the moment real, and actually like keeping heart to it.
For every instance where he kicked a Keystone Cop in the butt or whatever, he also would hold out a flower to a blind homeless woman, or adopt a small orphan boy and keep him out of trouble, and make them happy by dancing with little potatoes on forks, and that sort of humanism, I think, is a direct correlation 1-to-1 with Star Trek. Of like it's not just the crazy science fiction that you come to Star Trek for. It's for those human moments, even when you're dealing with characters that are not human. So. I'm glad that I got to get a little slapstick in this as well, because we're after the intensity of some of the previous episodes, we wanted to have a little bit of fun, but still couldn't help ourselves and make people feel emotions as well in this episode.
We only have a few minutes left here, and Aron, you've been extremely generous with your time. We really appreciate that. I do want to point out what Cirroc, I want to touch on a little bit more. What Cirroc mentioned, the animation quality, and we got to give them their kudos, especially right here. This almost looked like a freaking picture. How did they do that so well? It's gorgeous. It's amazing. And I know every Star Trek fan paused it right here, like I did. So that was just mind-blowingly good, and I'm sure Aron and you as well, Bonnie, when you see it go from page to screen like that, it's got to be a really nice feeling.
Yes. Go ahead, Aron.
I was just saying, well, it's just a testament to our artists, is what I was going to say. It's like, and that we use it's kind of fun because in animation, to achieve some of those cool effects, sometimes we will have the actual CGI models from the original Star Trek series that they just had in the archives that we were able to import in. Or other times we borrow from very old cinema techniques, and we'll create actual matte paintings to make it seem like you are in this fantastical reality, or there's a thing that would be really hard to build, but if you have an artist paint it and it looks photorealistic, it looks cool. So so I think that's how one of those two techniques is how they must have done that.
I feel like every episode we just pause it and you just want to frame art on your wall of every episode I've seen. I've just been blown away. I mean, just the opening credits is so iconic and gorgeous. It's frustrating that we don't have an art book yet, but I'm sure it's on the way. I'm sure there's more.
There are talks. Don't worry. There's
really awesome, because
I just want one so bad for myself. I'll make my own if I have to. I'm just going to start printing out, freeze frames from my phone if I have to.
For a lot of this stuff, I think it's just a matter of when, not if.
Of course.
You just have to get the right people on board, and putting together even an art book, you have to find an editor who will collect all that stuff and get the interviews and stuff. But I think that they're looking into it, so it's coming.
And I think having been who is an artist as well, like overseeing the direction a lot of the time, makes that art that much more stunning. I feel like because he comes from an artist background, I think it actually what's the word, amplifies how amazing this art is.
Yeah, because he studied fine arts, and obviously he's done a lot of incredible work over the years. He was, if you're not familiar, Ben was responsible for the Deathly Hallows animated sequence in Harry Potter, like that very stylized kind of surreal sequence. He directed that, and I remember when he first came on board our show. He was just like, oh, I was just playing around, and I wanted to see what Tarzan was like. And he wheeled in what looked to me like a gorgeous, like museum quality painting of Tars Lamora, and I was like, "That's your rough draft." But he's such an artist through and through, Ben, and he sees everything through that lens of how can we celebrate while also amplify, and finding that sliding scale. So I'm very, very grateful we have him on our team as well.
I feel like that's why just kudos to the whole animation and the artists that work on this. Cause it's like, you watch it and it's like, this is cinema worthy animation by far, like I could see this on a big screen.
That is only by the sheer sweat, blood, and tears of our artists. I will.
I guarantee you, yes.
Yeah. It's because they care and they are going the extra mile. So I think we all have to be very, very grateful to them.
Now, speaking of beautiful imagery, I do also want to point out.
Thank you.
Our buddy Don Crandall sent this in to anybody that doesn't know what the game reference is. There it is. There's the game reference. Yes. He also he noticed a lot of the Easter eggs as well, pointed a lot of them out. He also mentioned that he saw the Gamma Quadrant on the star chart and wonders/surmises if we may see the Dominion or Weyun number 78 floating around in space. So that's always a possibility. There's just so much in here, and I wish we had more time to cover it all.
I do want to really quickly say that the Dow's performance was really great in this. I thought covered the full spectrum of emotions in this episode. The confidence of kind of the arrogance of trying to beat the simulation, but also the vulnerability in the moment with Spock when Spock says you have to be anything less than perfect is unacceptable essentially, and he has that vulnerability where he's like, I'm not perfect and I'm not what you think I am. I'm not really the person, but I thought those kinds of moments of ups and downs really makes him multidimensional. And even with Prodigy's character, multidimensional. I like the fact that they're layered and they're just not stuck in one kind of lane of arrogance or flippantness or just always resisting. There's kind of a back and forth of just multi-dimensions. So you get layers of who these people are, and I think it really reflects in the writing. So yeah, I'm very interested to see where we go from here. That you have just like really put the bait out there, and I'm sure a lot of us are going to be biting on it now. Yeah. So if you didn't already bite, this is the time to bite.
Wow. Well, that's quite an endorsement. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, great. Well, I do want to give some time very quickly. We want to give a very special thanks to Carmen, a.k.a. Skillet, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arucan.
Arucan.
Cirroc's like, you're going to make me do it in front of Aaron. Yvette Blackmon, Tom, Homer Freezy out somewhere in New Yeezy, Eve England out in Wales, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, Titus Mohler, Tim Baum, John Mann, Darlena Marie, Rex A. Wood, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Dr. Susan B. Gruner, Joe Balsarati, and Tierney C. Diekman. See, Muhammad, people's eyes light up when they hear your name.
I had so much fun geeking out with Muhammad the other day. That was fun.
Awesome. Awesome.
And so was Anne-Marie and Katie. They were all wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you, Aaron, for this contribution to the whole Star Trek family. We want to continue the great work. This show looks like it's got a long way to go, and you are definitely piquing all of our interests and got us strapped in for the ride. So thank you, man, for joining us today and just giving us this gift.
Well, very, very happy to be here. I hope we earn your and keep your trust, because we really do care about the franchise and, and talking about the language being more than just translation, but interpretation. I think Star Trek is very much more than just the letter of the law of getting all of the canon details, this or that or whatever, but it really is about trying to embrace the spirit. And more than anything else, I feel like Star Trek Prodigy tries to embrace the spirit of Trek, and I hope that people continue to see that in our show.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this time chatting.
Aaron, you're the best. Thank you so much for your time. Get some rest. Also, everybody at home, it is Aron Eisenberg's birthday, so raise a glass of root beer or slug juice or something, and everybody toast to him. Remember his laughter, remember his great energy, and have a great day. Bonnie, thank you very much. Of course, as usual, you are a shiny beacon, and you've got the best hair in podcasting.
Thank you, darling. I'm a delight, let me tell you. Oh, thank you. No, thank you so much for having me. And also, I just love coming on and geeking out with you guys. And, you know, just like Aron was saying, I think everyone who works on the show, no matter how small, from the writers to the animators to the, you know, the people behind the scenes working on everything from the storyboards and the cast, we all are doing this from a place of love. I feel like all of us in some way or another love Star Trek, just from interacting with everyone, you know, behind the scenes, and the love for it, I think, shines through. And so thank you for letting me come on here and love it with you, because it gives me an outlet, so I'm not just sitting at home going like, I need to talk about this with somebody.
That's how we feel too, right, Cirroc? We just want to talk about, and basketball. But anyway,
yeah, of course.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Everybody at home, check out Prodigy. Watch it 50 times. Buy the merchandise. I think I saw maybe the Prodigy writing on Aron's shirt. I'm not sure. I saw yep, I did catch it.
Merch. You can't buy this one. This is crew merch. But there's other shirts you can buy. You can buy Star Trek.
I have
Prodigy
one.
Shirts on StarTrek.com.
I'm wearing one. I'm wearing a cat one right now, a Star Trek cat. So not Prodigy per se, but I'm representing.
That's okay. Get your Prodigy stuff. StarTrek.com, everybody. And well, I guess we'll see you next time. Until then, always remember the 7th rule.